Welcome everyone to Over and Back, brought to you by the Unintentional. I'm joined once again by Evan Flood. Evan, thank you for joining me again after the last time we talked. Appreciate it greatly. How you doing?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. Sunday night, so the weekend's winding down. One thing we forgot to do last week
hmm
that I wanted to do, I always kind of forget to do, is just so people know how to follow you. I'm assuming if they're listening, they probably know, but just kind of social media handles, accounts, Instagram, Twitter. What are your handles and stuff?
Yeah, my Twitter is Evan underscore Flood, and then the Prep Hoops account, I believe, is Prep Hoops underscore WI, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Those are the best two.
And
I'm
you
on
haven't.
Instagram, but I don't use it all that much.
Okay. Okay, good deal. We just talked real quick before. Obviously, say the weekend's winding down. So, what was your weekend like? You were down at Center Court, right?
Yeah, I went to the NBT event, final one of the summer. A couple good Milwaukee teams there. Um, a lot of mix of guys playing with different teams. So Sunday was pretty eventful. Once you got to the semifinals of the 15, 16, and 17U competition started to wrap up a little bit. It was a good watch.
Okay. So I want to say thanks to Movement Hoops contacted me on Twitter after our last podcast and just said thanks for shouting us out. Did you see that they posted a little bit of a video of us on
No,
Instagram?
I didn't see it. No.
Okay, yeah. So they just posted a little bit of us talking about him from the last pod. So I kind of talked to him over Twitter. So I know that they again had a team down there.
hmm
Um, I saw it. Last I saw was that both their teams were in the Final Four.
Yeah, I didn't see how the 16s did. I think they lost in the championship game, if I'm not mistaken. But a lot of their guys were playing up. Um, 2023 kids were playing up, and then the 17s won the title game over Milwaukee Storm, which is, I believe they're playing under that name because of COVID, but it's Milwaukee Spartans. They had a couple guys from, the Wisconsin Playmaker South team, like Najashi Tolfree or Ricky Bradley, those guys. So
Okay.
it's kind of a mix of those two teams they played against.
Okay. Was Foster was there, right? Did Foster
Yep,
come up and
yep.
play? Okay. No Cobbs though.
Nope. Foster and Chianti Clay were there, and then the rest were Wisconsin guys, I believe.
Okay. Anyone?
Not that they're not Wisconsin guys.
Right. Right. Anyone stand out? I mean, just kind of look really, really good. Whether we know they're good. I mean, did Foster look amazing as usual or no?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't play a large chunk of the second half. I don't know if he got hurt or what, but he started on the bench and kind of came back in with like 10 minutes remaining. He was up and down. He had a tough matchup with Tolfree. I thought did a really nice job on him. But when Foster wanted to and was really set on getting to the basket, there wasn't anything anybody could do to stop him. Jumper wasn't falling a ton, but I thought Chianti Clay was the guy that really helped push Movement Hoops over the top. Just a deadly sharp shooter within the gym range, really quick trigger guard. He's also at Hillcrest Prep with Foster. Used to go to Milwaukee, Washington. But he's looked good. Trey Valeriano, one of the most improved players in that class. I think he finished with 18. Clay at 31. Valeriano did some things, kind of a similar guard, a little bit bigger though, a little better at getting to the hoop and kind of has an in between game. So they had a couple guys that really um, played well in the second half because they were down by double digits early, and they kind of poured it on in the second half to run away with it.
Have either of those guys committed anywhere at all yet or no? They haven't, have they?
I haven't seen. I don't think Clay has. Valeriano hasn't either. I know he just picked up an offer from Cleveland State. So we'll see. If more are coming for him, or if he's a guy that maybe you know takes his talents to JUCO or prep, and see if he can expand his recruitment a little more and get his name out there. Obviously, kind of a tough year for a kid like him who was virtually unknown after last season and is now starting to come on. But unfortunately, college coaches aren't in the gym able to watch him and really find out, what he's about. So that could be a good move for him.
You couldn't live stream that event, could you, this past weekend
I
anywhere?
don't know. I don't think it was.
Okay, I
Whether or
don't
not
either,
they
but
were stopping people from doing it, I doubt. But yeah, I don't
oh
know.
right, yeah. And Foster hasn't committed anywhere yet, has he?
No, and I think he's also looking at some other routes beyond college. as well. So I don't think it's a sure thing that he necessarily goes to college next year.
Are we talking like Australia, stuff like that? With
Uh,
Hamilton and
I
Baldwin
don't
or what?
want to speculate because I haven't followed it. The last article I read, I know he was not for sure going to college, but I haven't followed him all that closely since he left Wisconsin.
Okay. Okay. I don't know this. Who runs Movement Hoops, by the way? I'm assuming you know. And I guess my next
I
question, my
would
follow up.
assume it's Jake Nelson and Isaac
Okay,
Dennis. I
Isaac
would
Dennis. Okay, I know the name Isaac Dennis. I just don't know if that was okay. That was
Yeah,
my
because like I
question.
mentioned, I think they kind of took over the Dane County Warriors. Started with them. It's a bunch of different guys now, but that's kind of where they start. So I don't know if Dane County Warriors still have anything to do with it, or if it's just in their hands or not. I don't know, but those are the guys showing up at everything, coaching the teams, and running all the social media stuff, from what I can tell.
Okay, well, I'll expect a message from them. They can tell me who's running what, then I suppose. So,
Okay.
all right. Well, we brought you, but you came back, which I appreciate again, to talk about because you just released the 2022 rankings on Friday, I believe it was, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, and you didn't tweet it out, so I'm not sure how many people
Happens.
listening to this, or you didn't tweet it out, right?
No.
Okay, it's funny. It's funny because like I messaged you and I said it's probably not going to matter because people are going to check no matter what, whatever. And I think Friday morning I got a text right away and from Owen, and Owen told me what he was.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, all right, well, people are going to find out quick enough, soon enough that the rankings are out there, obviously. So it kind of snowballs from there. So
Yeah.
you released them Friday. It's Sunday night. We're talking right now. So we said we'd bring you back and we talk about the rankings and kind of get more in depth, I guess, maybe what everything goes into it. What I want to lead with, which is something we talked about last time, and maybe you've got more information on it now, but let's discuss Logan Landers here.
Mm.
And if he belongs in 2022, what's going on or what are we doing? Or maybe we still don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, they keep using the term reclassifying, and I think you can do, I don't know if it matters. I don't know if there's a right or wrong right now
Sure.
because on one hand, you say, well, he's still graduating high school in 2021. On the other hand, you could say he's not going to college till 2022. So, in the end of the day, he's going to be out of the rankings once he goes to prep school anyway. So I just moved him to 2022. That's what he wants to be recruited as. So even though he is graduating high school, he'll be a senior at Cedarburg and announced as such, throughout the year. I figured just move him to 2022 since, that's the plan to be recruited that way. And then, when next season, not this coming season, but the season after that rolls around, he won't be in the rankings anyway. So because he'll be at a prep school, presumably out of Wisconsin. So, won't have any effect at the end of the day. And like I said, he wants to be recruited as a 2022 prospect from everything I'm told. So, why not throw him in there? And, I think helps his stock too, moved up, a good 5 or 6 spots in the rankings anyway by moving him to 2022. So I figured it was better to leave him there. And yeah, if it ended up being wrong, I guess I can always move him back to 2021. But you keep using the word reclassifying to describe him. So
Okay.
that means
Yeah.
you've changed classes.
Yeah, right. So, and I'm talking to my oldest son about it, and he's like, "Dad, he's 2022," and I'm like, "Yeah, but he's not like he's
Right.
going to prep school." So, what's weird about it is typically this happens after they graduate, right? Like if like Keaton Ferris was the perfect example, right? He graduates
Yeah.
high school, he's going to wherever in Minnesota somewhere, and then he says he's going to prep school instead. So it's kind of the same thing, but it's a timing thing. So I guess my next question would be, when he's playing this year at Cedarburg, are they announcing him as a junior or is he a senior?
No, they'll have to announce him as a senior. It's his 4th year in high school, and that's where the confusion kind of comes in because if you're going to use the term reclassifying, you have to move classes. But in
Right.
reality, he's not really moving classes. He's still graduating in 2021. So
It's weird.
it's like I said, I don't know if there's a right or wrong way to do it. Other than I just went with he wants to be a 2022 prospect. He's going to be recruited that way. He's not signing anywhere. And like you mentioned, usually you don't know they're going to prep school until after their senior season
Right.
wraps. This kind of thing has never really come up with me. So it's like I said, I don't know if there's a right or wrong way to label it. I think at the end of the day, you just put him in the 2022 class because that's the way he's going to be recruited.
Okay. That was actually, you answered my question. My next question was, have you ever seen something like this before where it's like there's kids that get held back like in eighth grade, right? Right before high school, they get held
Mhm.
back. And then there's kids that go to prep school after they graduate high school. I've never seen this where a kid right before senior year, actually someone just, well, no, that was right after high school too, I think, or right towards the end, where someone does it like a year before. So you've never seen this before?
Not off the top of my head, no, because like I said, that's a decision you usually make based on, where your recruitment is, or what you want to, or if you're young for your age and you want to get back to playing guys closer to your level to help you out. It usually doesn't come up this early. He's a guy with a bunch of high major offers, bunch of mid major offers, I think too, if I'm not mistaken. So it's kind of weird to see it come this early and already make that decision. But um, yeah, I can't really think of any player off the top of my head that's done it before their senior season has ever kicked off. Usually
Right.
that's a decision made based on, okay, I don't know necessarily what I want to do for college, or I don't like my options. So, take another year to figure it out, or expand that offer list. So yeah, it's kind of a rare situation there.
Okay. And I mean, you mentioned like with getting back, kids younger for the grade. It's at this point in everyone's so all over the board. I mean, there's kids that are, going to be sophomores that are already have a driver's license. There's kids that are, young for their age. There's so much
Mhm.
behind the scenes that goes on with that. It's kind of ridiculous sometimes, but okay. So let's get back to the main list then. So obviously you had a base list, months ago, whenever the last time you would have revised, I guess 2022. When you got to revising this list, where do you or how do you start changing? Do you just start at number one and be like, yep, he's still number one, he's number two, or do you just kind of go with kids that are popping up out of nowhere? How do you start it, or how do you get going on it?
I really try and figure out the top 10 first. And, it's helpful when you get some of these individual matchups. My hope is that they kind of sort themselves out. So, we had Jeff Brazil go against Leon Bond, in Minnesota a couple weeks ago. And, Brazil kind of made that statement, hey, I'm still a guy to beat in this class. And, I think, that kind of sorted itself out. Fortunately, we don't get much crossover between the phenom guys and the playground club kids unless, they face off in high school. So, I was kind of watching film at the NY2LA event, trying to get a feel for where some of those guys are. Obviously there's no substitute for seeing them in person, but you got to go with what what you have. And, sort of this, COVID age, when you're not able to be there in person. So, I do think it's a three-man race for that number one spot. I thought Seth Trimble looked really good, these past couple events, and he's definitely taken some big steps forward. I already was really high on him before, but it looks like he's growing a little bit. Starting to get more comfortable as a shooter from all areas of the floor, and really kind of addressing some of the weaknesses he has. So, I know Brazil and Bond are kind of talked about most at the top of this class, but I think Trimble's definitely there. Stephen Clay at 4. I, I wouldn't say I would kind of draw that line at 3, but I think Stephen's still a kid that could get into the top 2 as well, just because you talk about a 6'5" sniper with really long arms, athletic kid. He kind of reminds me of Charles Matthews, who played at Michigan. He's got that type of length, that type of shooting ability. I wouldn't rule him out of a potential move either. But yeah, just kind of start with the top 10 and then go from there. I usually kind of adjust them after each event based on what I see, just so, because at the time it's fresh in my head versus trying to, um, really look back on 3, 4, 5 events and, try and label 150 kids or whatever I got in there. So I kind of move things around after each event and, come back to it, when I'm ready to finalize it and see how it feels again. And then just kind of work my way down.
Okay. I love Trimble. I don't think it would be surprised one bit if at the end of this year or the next year that he's by far the number one kid.
Right.
Um, I know you have him listed at 5'11". I think he's probably 6'2" or 6'3" at this point. He's
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I saw him last. God, it's almost been a year. Whatever. He's just so good with the ball. He protects the ball so well. He's just. I mean, he's good. Yeah. He's I love his game. I love how he plays. I think he could very well be number one. And again, I've seen Bond and I've seen Jeff. You know, have we figured out how to say Jeffrey's last name yet or no?
Uh, I'm pretty sure it's Brazio.
Okay, we should
I
know
gotta
this.
ask him, but yeah, it's one of those things. I never have to say it. I'm
Yeah,
always
right,
writing it. People
right,
give me
right.
these all the time. Like I don't know. Like
Yeah,
I know how to spell it.
yep. Um, yeah. So those guys, I mean, I think Brazil and Bond. I think a lot of times people just flip them one and two, but I think some of these guys get left out. Like you said, we talked about Trimble. I think Trimble has got such a high ceiling
Mhm.
too, and Clay as well, which is crazy. They're both on the same Menominee Falls team. But okay, so you said you get to the top. Did your top 10 change at all aside from taking Logan, Landers entering it?
I don't, or I did it. Yeah, I think I had Clay behind Jack Rose, and I moved
Okay.
Clay up one spot. Although it's two now because of Landers. He
Yeah.
slid in ahead of Landers, and then I can't remember. I might have moved Jackson Pavletsky ahead of Donovan Short. Other than that, I believe the top 10 stayed the same.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm just going back through here. Any okay, so then okay, perfect. So we go to the top 10. Then do you go to the next 10 at that point, or are you kind of looking at, or are we starting to get to the point where we're getting people that are going to make some bigger moves here?
Yeah, it stayed relatively similar again. Yeah, I would say the two guys that made the biggest moves were Ashton Janowski from Pewaukee. He was really good this summer. He was two different players last year. I don't think a lot of people know about him yet, but I went to his season opener against Menominee Falls, where he went against Trimble and Stephen Clay, and he won that matchup. And then he kind of got injured and was never the same player the rest of the year. He's come back strong, and I really like him. And then, he would have been top 10 had Logan Landers not moved into my 2022 rankings.
Right.
And then Najashi Tolfree up to 13. I think I had him early 20s. He had a big summer, just a real physical kid. Starting to expand his game away from the rim, high motor. Still just scratching the surface though. 6'5", 6'6", good blend of strength, athleticism, and skill on the perimeter. He's got a chance to keep climbing too. And then, yeah, I really hate, the 11 through 20 because I think it's so close. And I think you could order it in so many ways. Like, I don't feel good about Jack Campion at 15. I thought he had a really good game against Janowski last time I saw those two match up and probably won that head-to-head battle. He's a guy I could see going to the mid-major level. Andrew Rohde I really liked on film the last couple weekends at NY2LA. He looks like he's making some gains. And then, you see what I have just before the top 20 where, it's Andrew Alia, Luke Hurdle, Casey Verhagen. Like, I don't feel good about those guys that deep at all. I think it's so close between 11 and 20. Like I said, I think you could order it so many ways. I really wouldn't argue it. Because I think those guys are really good prospects, either at the Division II level or possibly sneaking their way into the mid-major. And then Lyric Davis, who's got more upside than maybe anybody in this class back at 20. He could just take off in the next year as well. And then I would probably throw CJ Campbell from New Richmond into that mix as well. It's a guy who's really starting to come on, and I think will be at the very least a strong Division II player.
So you say that 11 and 20 are really close. And I think I think you can even go deeper. I think you can go down. I mean, at some point, I'm going to tell you that I think Owen's too low here, but like, I think he could be up there easy enough too. When you go through these, and I guess we could talk specifically about this class since that's what we're talking about, but when you go through these, do you think, all right, here's the drop off? Or cause I really think like 11 through, and and honest to God, I honestly think you can go higher than even 11. You could go up to 6 even,
Yeah.
and say that a kid at 30 or 35 could be just right there too. But I'm just wondering, do you
Yeah.
have, do you have like, all right, here's the drop off, or it's tough. I know there's probably not, but
Yeah, definitely. Definitely think there's tiers to it. And I think that's usually how when I work my way down, I start to say, well, who's in this group that I need to order? Then who's in the next group? And Yeah, I think that definitely. I don't know if I do it on purpose, but I definitely it's more organic. But I definitely feel myself doing that where I start cutting a player off. Okay, I don't have to worry about him in this group. Let's focus at the 10 or 15 at a time that are kind of around the same level and go from there. I think it makes it a lot easier. And I think those tiers, when you get these head-to-head matchups or see these guys on the same teams, those tiers start to form. And one of those reasons it's so hard to separate, 11 to 20 or wherever you want to start it. There's a lot of these guys play on playground together and the minutes are split really evenly. And, you don't have these guys that necessarily have those dominant 15, 20 minute stretches outside of, Jeff Braziel and, Jack Rose from time to time that, really start to separate themselves. So like I said, I think about 11 to 20, I think 4 or 5 or those playground kids that kind of share minutes and,
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily outshine each other in any single way. So, you know, like I said, if you want to make a case for Casey Verhagen being, up in the early teens, I wouldn't fight you on it. Luke Hurdle, Andrew Alia, same thing, Jack Campion, just guys I'm really high on, unfortunately, I just think, the back end of the top 25 is just so stacked. Most classes, these guys would be a lot higher than where they are.
So that's actually um, a good segue into another question that I had written. I'm not sure I sent this one to you, but um, so let's take the guys that are on the same team. Okay, so let's say you're coming into this summer, you're coming into AU, you've got these guys ranked. Obviously, they're tight, right? So I mean, like you just said, there's 4 guys from 15 to 19, 4 guys from playground. You go into the summer and you're watching them. If one of them clearly outplays the other one, is that an automatic to you? All right, I'm putting him the top of these 4. I'm going to move him up, and that goes not just for playground. I mean, there's you can go through this throughout this list, and there's plenty of kids that are on the same teams that are back to back ranked or within 2 or 3 or 4, and then you could look at the summer. Well, this kid outplayed his teammate. Is he ahead of no matter what, or do you take the high school year still into account, or what? You know what I mean?
Ideally, that's the way I'd like to do it. Now, you always have to consider upside and how you think somebody's going to project at the college level, based on their positional size or, how you think they fit into a certain structure. Ideally, I'd like to, reward the kid, who has the better summer or, has the better event, however many times I'm able to see you. Makes it easier if that's the kid with the measurables or, the right height and frame for his position that's going to project better at the college level. A lot of people love to rank, you know, 75% or so on upside. I'm not necessarily one of those guys. I think it's great. Obviously, the NBA draft, you see, people reach for players all the time. But upside also gets you fired at the college level. My kind of style with this is to, rank kids based on what they are more than what they could be. Um, I think, you always take the upside into consideration. I mean, it's definitely something that, may bump a kid up a couple more spots than where you think he's at. But at the end of the day, I like to go with the guys who, are maybe more proven commodities, who have seen do it time and time again, who are consistent. And I know are safe bets at the college level versus, maybe some guys that, could pay off big 3, 4, 5 years from after they graduate.
Okay, because I was actually, and I don't. There's part of me that wants to put you on the spot just to talk more specifically about this, but like we've got, if you go 39, 40, 41, Carter Thomas 39, Tyler Borowski 40, 41, Josiah Butler. All 3 of them playing the exact same team,
Oh,
or Crusaders.
mm. I
So
didn't I didn't notice that.
yeah. So then the next question is, all right, which 3 of those had the best summer? And then if it's close, then what do you go? You know what I mean? That's like when I look at this list, I look at
Yeah.
that stuff because I've seen a lot of these. I've seen a lot of these. Same with the playground kids. I'm like, all right, which 4 of those had the best summer? Where I would put the other one who had the best summer tops. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I think you could say Josiah Butler had the best summer. Um,
Yeah.
and that's another group. I had I think it's really close. which is probably why. I mean, I didn't even realize I did it, but it's probably why I have them all in a row like that, because I am starting to split hairs with those three. Yeah, I do think you say Josiah Butler had the best summer. Um, Carter Thomas, I would give him the edge just because um, I think he's the most well-rounded of the three right now, and a kid that's just starting to scratch the surface. Whereas, you look at Josiah, obviously, I think could still play his way even higher than where he is. I
For
just
sure.
need to see more of him. Carter, a guy I thought had a great defensive summer, and really held his own against some good post prospects in the state. And then, you look at the offensive end. Um, Show some signs of being able to space the floor, put it on the deck. He's got a chance to be a pretty good mismatch problem. And then, Tyler Borowski, kind of same deal with him. I think he just brings a lot of things that don't necessarily show up in the stat book. Outstanding floor general, dribble drive guard that just sees the floor really well, seems to make a lot of people better. But yeah, those three, I think it's very close right now, and I think all three, you can make a case for all three of them being in the top 40. Fortunately, Josiah is probably the one I'm least familiar with, which is maybe why I kind of gave him the short end of the stick there. But he did also jump up, I think, 30
Sure.
some spots. So he
Yep.
was one of the biggest risers in this class, but not a guy that I'm all that familiar with yet. I've seen Carter and Tyler a lot more, which is maybe why I was a little more comfortable going with them.
Yeah. And I don't want to make this another Josiah Butler and Owen Polakowski podcast, but we'll just segue into Owen Polakowski because Josiah was probably your second biggest riser, and I'm assuming Owen was your first biggest riser. So how did you come to put Owen where he ended up going? Because that's another kid that you're obviously just not familiar with. You saw a few games in over AAU.
Yeah. The way I thought he was I thought he had a pretty comparable summer to a guy like, Kenny Garth was already there. So it's not like, but Ben Olsen was another big stock riser from Sun Prairie that I thought had a pretty comparable summer, guy that, wasn't relatively known all that much as sophomores, maybe. I know Olsen did play varsity, and I got to see him a little bit, but there were two kids that just took off. But I didn't necessarily get to see them play a lot of high level matchups. So I kind of slated them similar, both similar size. I gave Owen a little bit of an edge because of his athleticism, a little better 3-point shooter. I think, Olsen is a little bigger, probably a little bit better motor. So it's close there as well. But I placed those guys outside the top 30 because I thought they were two guys that, you look at what I have, on the back end of the top 30, outside of Noah Federson, these are all guys that, are proven, have done it for a couple years. As far as guys that I'm not that familiar with, Olsen and Polakowski were the two highest guys, pushing for a top 30 spot. So, I think, like I said last time, before I really bump you up all the way, I like to see you, in some high level matchups. Owen will definitely get that in the Fox Valley Association and, have more chances to move up. But I like to see how you do against top level competition and, see how you perform really when you start to get that X on your back and, you're a known name and people start to game plan against you. It is a little bit different ball game. So I thought, mid 30s was a good starting spot for both. And, those were the two guys that maybe had the biggest summers in terms of people that were pretty unknown around the state.
All right. When you're going through stuff, because I just try to put myself kind of in your shoes too when I rank these kids in my head. And a lot of the kids, you obviously see these kids way more than I do. But I can compare the kids that I've seen for years and that I've seen recently. Do you ever do you ever kind of, when you're going through them in your head, which is, like I said, what I would do was like thinking to yourself, well, I know this kid can guard him, but this guy can't guard him. Like I'm comparing two kids. I'm like, well, he can guard him. He cannot guard him. And then you give the other one that I know there's more involved. It's not a one-on-one game and there's plenty of things involved. But whenever you get like in a tight spot, do you ever get to that kind of like comparison?
Um, not really. I think it can be such a guessing game at times. I'm trying to think of a situation off top. Maybe you look at the top three, and I've seen all three of those guys go up against each other now. Jeff and Seth Trimble, faced off as freshmen. Leon Bond, Seth Trimble, and Stephen Clay faced off, a couple times last season, and that kind of made it easy. Um, to label that top five. Haven't seen those guys face head to head, but the individual matchups definitely do stick in my mind for a long time. You could just look at the 2021 rankings, where Braden Daly and Logan Landers. Went head to head at Mark Miller's event, and Daly had a huge game in that one. Now, do I necessarily think Daly's a better prospect than Logan Landers? Probably not, all things considered. But when you see something like that, where a kid just has a big game in a head-to-head matchup, it is hard to shake, and forget about that, for the next year or however long, it's been since I've seen it. So, you do try and picture these matchups in your head as best you can, but it's kind of a guessing game. Like I said, I'm kind of more of a facts and eye test guy. I like to go off what I see rather than maybe guessing how this would go. And I think the best way to do that, at least for me, is to just really evaluate the course of, in this case, the course of an entire summer versus trying to project what one kid may do against another.
What do you do with kids? Because I mean, you've got, what is this list? 100 kids. It's fair to say that you have not seen all these kids play this summer, correct?
This summer?
Yeah. I mean, you've seen probably before,
uh,
because it'll lead. Because I know. Well, I know there's for surely one kid that you did not see because he didn't play AU, which is my next question. But so my
oh, right.
question, yeah. So my question
Yeah,
is like,
I mean, it's probably out of the, I mean, unless it was a phenom kid or somebody that didn't play AAU, or I mean, I saw phenom online, but
right. So
yeah. So unless they didn't play, I think I saw everyone. There might be one, two. Yeah,
sure.
there's about three or four that I see right now that I had not seen this summer.
Yeah. So like, how do you handle that? Like, I don't know. Did you see Chris Morgan play? Because he didn't play because he plays for
No,
Sizzle. Yeah. So we
yeah.
didn't.
So
So Chris.
unfortunately, like these guys did drop. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of a tough situation. It's not anything like I said they did, but I think sometimes I mean, what do you do? Not reward the kids who played well? I mean, there's really no other way
No.
to do it. But yeah, yeah. So the kids I think most of them, if not all of them, yeah, probably fell, and then some. I try to manage it as best I can, just in terms of limiting how far you're going to fall. Um, but it's usually unavoidable, just because especially when I'm still building like this too. It
Right.
wasn't like the 2021 class where I already had 150. I think I stretched this from 80 to 100. So
Hmm.
a lot of those performances, especially new faces, are in my head, or in some of the guys that didn't play this summer I may not have seen since early, in the high school season last year, like Nolan Hawk out of DeForest. You mentioned Chris Morgan. There were a couple guys, Terrence McClendon, Wauwatosa West. I didn't get to see James Jacobs, Stevens Point. At least wasn't there at the event I was at. So, yeah, unfortunately they did fall. But I'll make an effort, to see these guys again, just to give them a fair shake. But yeah, I think the best thing to do is, even though those guys don't play, is to reward the guys who did have a good summer and improve their stock, and bump them up. So it's not like I necessarily bump these guys down. It's just really other guys coming from behind them and moving up and giving them, the benefit of the doubt or the props, because, they had good summers.
Yeah, no, and I don't disagree with you. It's a tough spot to be in because if you've got some of these kids that didn't even play AU for whatever reason, and you haven't seen them since, like the high school year, which was a half a year ago, and depending on how the high school year was, how do you handle, I guess I'm not even asking a question. I'm just kind of just picking your brain of like the process of like, well, this is kind of a pain. Now I got to figure out where this kid slots in because, and I haven't seen him in 6 months and he didn't play, and I can't even ask anyone how his summer was because he didn't play the summer. And so it's just, some of these kids that I obviously, again, I haven't watched them all. You've seen way more than I have, but a lot of the kids obviously in North Wisconsin, I do know, and I have seen, and I do know who's playing AU, and I know who's not. So I'm just those pop off the page to me of, all right, well, how do you handle something like that? So I was just curious. That's all. Um,
Mm,
you had said you said you bumped it from what, 80 to 100.
something like that. Yeah.
So that's got to be just a cluster of, how the hell do you just add 20 kids? I mean, I know there's a few you can add just because they had breakout summers, but to come up with 20 other kids. No,
Yeah. I
no,
mean,
no offense to the 20 kids, but sometimes it gets slim pickings. Like it's tough.
yeah. I mean, it was really guys I didn't know or hadn't heard of before for the most part. And so you got to remember, like these guys were on 15U last year, and I didn't do a lot of 15U just because I'm trying to focus on the two older groups. So there are a lot of names that will pop up. Team 1848 had, you know, I think three other guys that I'd never heard of before. At least two that are in there. Wisconsin Swings got a couple 16U teams that are deep, that have college prospects on them that I didn't know. Wisconsin Playmaker South, had some good talent as well. They gave me 3, 4 more guys. World Hoops Elite, so these guys pop up. I wouldn't say 20 is a lot to add. I'll add a lot more at the 15U level here. I think I'm getting up to 75. I started this summer at 25 or 30 if I'm not mistaken. So these guys tend to kind of make it easier than maybe it seems. And also after the season, ask for everyone's film to kind of drop it in on Twitter for guys who I've never seen, or I might be sleeping on or haven't heard of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put those guys into a watch list too. And if I get the chance to see them, there's certainly got it penciled in as somebody needs to see. If not, and I really like the film, I'll throw you in there as well and do my best to rank you accurately.
Have you ever come across someone who, and this could go for, I guess, it'd probably be mostly, I guess, juniors, juniors or seniors, not specifically to 22 and 21, but just in general, since you've been doing this for years, where a kid plays really, really well in AAU. He's got good summer, he plays good in the summer, but for whatever reason does not play like many minutes for his high school team. You see a lot of kids like that. And if so, how do you, like what's your kind of train of thought on that? And as far as ranking, if you rank them or just in general?
Usually, I care a lot more about what you do in AAU. Obviously, the talent you're playing with, and generally the talent you're going against is better. And I think you just get a more organic brand of basketball for the most part. In high school, if you're facing a good coach and he wants to shut you down, he's going to shut you down. And so I do adjust rankings slightly, in high school season, but it's more, kids outside the top 50 who generally I'm not as familiar with. I would say they have a chance to make a bigger impression. But, Grant Assman's a kid that comes to mind, from Kimberly. I was watching him as a freshman and, even a sophomore, and I saw him play really well in some high level events. And then, I've been at a handful of Kimberly games the past couple of years, and the impact isn't quite the same. Obviously, it can depend on the dynamics of your team. It can depend on the system. It can depend on your teammates. Obviously, he's got a lot of college players on his team, and maybe necessarily wasn't the focal point, but he was always a guy that I'm assuming had higher than everybody else, because I had seen him perform really well, at the Spiece Run and Slam in Fort Wayne, that and some of the bigger NY2LA events. So I was familiar with what he could do, and even though that production didn't necessarily translate to his high school team, it never really bothered me, just because I knew what he was capable of while playing, in some higher level stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I totally get what you're saying. Um, when you were doing this 2022 list, or I guess whenever you do any list, do you ever think to yourself, I'm just gonna get destroyed on this one?
Yeah, that's the one thing I hate about rankings
Yeah.
is, there's I try not to let politics influence my decision. But I hate. I just want to. I want to please everybody. That's all the way. That's the way I've always been. But it's just impossible. So there's a lot that in here that I don't necessarily feel good about. Just in terms of, I think they're very debatable. There always is with every class.
Yeah.
Like I said last time, like I can't see everything. Um, as coaches that know their players a lot better than I do. So yeah, I think when I'm ranking a kid, it definitely pops in the back of my head. How much heat am I going to take if I have him too high or too low? But um, at the end of the day, you can't please everybody. So yeah, I think I think you got to kind of push that aside the best you can, and just go with what your gut or what your head tells you to do.
You don't have to give me the name of any of these kids, but on this list, did you do that? Did you do that with this list? Did you think to yourself, I'm gonna hear something? Aside from me telling you about Owen, but that's it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a kid who I was worried about that I was going to hear. So I mean, well, yeah, I can see one right now.
You can discuss if you
I
want.
know the
You
kid
don't
won't
have
be.
to. You
I'm not
can.
going to throw anybody. I know the kid won't be happy. But like I said, if you, I think I brought this up last time, but like, I mean, not that I necessarily want to hear about it, on Twitter or get a text from anybody, but if you're happy with your ranking,
Yeah.
I don't think that's healthy, as a competitor. Like
Right.
I'd rather have you angry about it and PO'd and, than necessarily be content. And, anybody that doesn't like their ranking, go prove me wrong and shut me up. Like I don't have any agenda with this stuff. If I see something I like, I'll move you up.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Have you gotten any comments since Friday on the list at all, or no? I'm
I
assuming.
haven't, but I haven't tweeted it.
Yeah.
So
So who knows? And you can't.
I'm
And you have your messages turned off unless you follow that person, so they can't direct message you either, right?
correct. That's
Although
not why I turn them off. But yeah, but I did. I
it's
don't have any
it
notifications
should
come
be a
up.
large it
So
should be a large reason, I would think. Um, I anything else for this list? I'm just anything that you want to discuss. I mean, I'm not gonna we don't need to go through every single name and why they're there, why there's someone's 15 and 16 and 17 or 18. I'm just trying to give a little bit of insight to people that do want to know. And I, like you said, you like to be transparent with rankings and things like that, just to kind of what you're thinking. But anything that you're thinking that you just kind of wanted to just not explain even, but just like I said, be transparent with any of the
I think I
rankings.
touched on it. I think the part where people, may have the most, or there might be the most debate or criticism would be that 10 through 21 range, and I think that was probably the biggest thing I wanted to air out. Like, listen, you could be 21.
Yeah.
Like CJ Campbell. I could see you at 10,
Yeah.
and I really wouldn't argue it a ton if somebody had him up there. So that goes through all the guys in the range. I just think it's so close, and you could order it so many different ways. It's a really deep class this year. With a lot of guys kind of sitting right in between being a mid major and a really good D2.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at a lot of these kids in the 30s and 40s, and you've seen games out of them that are like, well, that's one of the best games. They've had games better than the kids in the top 15.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like when you catch them, um, what weekend you catch them on or what game you catch them on, I guess, if you see them in a good spot or not. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I've seen so many of these kids for the last 5, 6, 7 years. So I know a lot of them, what they're capable of, and kids grow and kids don't grow and kids fall off and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing how close even, and like you've said 10 to 21, I would even go 10 to 40. Even you could even go past that. It's just, it's what day of the week it is. You never know what you catch them on, but it's crazy how tight it is in certain spots. But, um, so you said you were putting together the 2023 list.
Yeah, I'm gonna start that probably this week. I don't know if I'll finish, but I got a lot of new names. I gotta get in there.
Um, what do you think as far as if we go? Let's go 2000. Maybe 2020 is not a great list because it's got Jalen Johnson and some top. Well, I guess 2020 was pretty good too. But like as you look at like 2020, let's just go back a few years and then into 2023 because that's basically what you're up to. What class do you feel like is there like one that this class was by far the way better than these other classes? Because people like to start comparing, right? Like people I've already heard people comparing. Oh, 2023 is better than 2022, and I'm like, that's not happening, not even close. But all opinion and kind of how you're is the top three, is it top 50, whatever. But is there a class that's was head and shoulders above everyone?
I mean, how are we breaking it down? I mean, in terms of the most.
Well, that's the question, right? Yeah, because you could say, well, five
Who's
kids have
got the
one.
deepest top 50, or
Yeah,
best at the top? I don't. There's so many different ways you could break it down. Obviously, I think in terms of high major potential, I think 2021 might be the best. 2023,
it's still early.
yeah, it's so early. You don't know. I mean, these guys tend to make their biggest jump. It tends to become pretty obvious right after sophomore year or during sophomore year.
Right.
So they tend to make the most jumps in their body. So it's tough to really throw them into the conversation yet. In terms of guys who or let's just say Division One level, who's going to have the best impact. Obviously you got Patrick Baldwin Jr. And you compare that with the 2020 class, and you could say him and Jalen Johnson cancel each other out. Well, then you
Yeah.
go down, David Joplin, Johnny Davis. Probably give the edge to Davis there, though. But then you start going to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in 2021, and you got James Graham going to Maryland, Tyrese Hunter going to Iowa State. Cade Myers is a steal for UW Green Bay. Brandon Podzinski's got high major offers. Cam Pelezi, I think, is a really good mid major. I think, he's on par with like, Marcus Domask um, uh, or even, trying to think, Dalton Banks from the 2020 class, a kid that's just going to walk in there and, play right away from day one and make a big impact. And then you got Kobe Johnson, who may end up going high major too. So that's 9 guys. And you compare that to 2020. Let's see. So Carter Gilmore in there as a walk-on. He's got a chance to make an impact at Wisconsin. It's close.
Yeah.
I think 2021, I would give it a little more depth. Um, you look at the back end of the Division One guys: Jacob Ognosevich, Taryn Thompson, who I really like. Jordan Davis at Wisconsin. So I think I would give the edge to 2021, especially when you start saying, who's got pros. Well, you're really probably only looking at one each. And I think Jalen Johnson might be a better college player, but Patrick Baldwin Jr. in terms of a pro, I think definitely has the edge there as, kind of being possibly the second coming of Klay Thompson based on, the way he looks. I wouldn't count 2022 either, but I think the top just doesn't have
They don't have a Baldwin or a
that one or
Jalen.
two guys that
Yeah.
are going to be stars. They're all kind of questionable. Inside that top 5, but yeah, in terms of top 50, I don't know if I've looked into it, that deep yet in
Yeah.
terms of who's got the deepest class. But at the top, I'd give 2021 a slight edge over 2020.
All right. Um, let's transition into you brought up both those guys, the Davis twins. You mentioned this last time, and I've always thought this, and I don't think it's much. I think everyone probably thinks it, right? Was was the sealer of getting Johnny Davis, giving Jordan Davis the offer as well?
I think that sealed it. Whether or not it would have happened anyway, I don't know. Based on his current offer list, Wisconsin, I'm 99% sure would have gotten Johnny. The question is,
Okay.
did you want to risk that
Right,
going into the
right.
final
Okay.
eval period in July? And it makes it's not really a Greg Gard or a Wisconsin move to do something like that. You remember they didn't do it with the Ellensons. Um, didn't do it with the Hausers, didn't play that game,
Didn't get him
and they
again.
lost. So I don't know if that factored into the back of the mind too, but you also got to remember they had so many scholarships left over. They thought they were getting the Hauser brothers transfer from Marquette. So they kind of stopped recruiting in other classes, and they had so many scholarships available. And you look at it, well, Jordan's too good to be walking on. You don't usually get that type of player to walk on. So he was going to be on scholarship anyway. Why not just jump the gun and make sure you get Johnny? Because there was a lot of pressure, on them to get that done.
Yeah.
Obviously, in-state recruiting for a variety of reasons hadn't been good to Wisconsin to that point. This was the guy that was not only right in their wheelhouse, not only from the same high school that produced Kobe King, played for the same AAU program and playground club that's, really been good to the Badgers and sent them a lot of players. But he's also a game changer, for the Badgers too. They're not used to this type of athleticism from the guard spot. So, he was right in their wheelhouse in terms of the level of prospect he was. And he also upgrades them greatly. So there's a lot of pressure to get that done. So I think, there's a peace of mind element too, to just say, hey, we want them both anyway. We've got extra scholarships available. Why risk it?
When Kobe left Wisconsin, do you know if that was an immediate conversation? Obviously, that they were trying to wrangle the whole Johnny and Jordan thing, just making sure everything was okay. I'm assuming so.
They did. I don't know if they had a ton to be worried about. I know I think the whole staff, right after it happened, drove to La Crosse and met with the family and, just kind of made sure everything was all right. I don't know if that's something they had to do, but it certainly, I know talking to Mark Davis, their father, left a big impression on them. And, if there were any doubts, all those were definitely erased by the conversation that they had. I don't know if they necessarily agreed with, what Kobe was doing either. I know there's a lot going behind the scenes with him, but,
Right.
they saw him, start to kind of be a big name, in the Big Ten. He was starting, they were running sets for Kobe that they never run. I mean, you go look at that Penn State game. I mean, they were isolating him 1-4 low and just kind of letting him go to work. Like, that's not Wisconsin basketball.
Yeah.
And he was starting to become a big name. He was probably going to be an all-conference player for them. So I don't know if they necessarily agreed with the decision for him to leave either. Like I said, obviously there's a lot going on behind the scenes that contributed to this. It wasn't just X's and O's or style play on the basketball floor. It might not be anything to do with that, but whatever Kobe was going through, from everything I was told, it never affected Johnny, or Jordan or the family. So
Okay.
he was pretty secure from everything I know.
Yeah. Well, Johnny is he is an alpha, that's for sure. He's I love his attitude. I love his kind of take on the game, and he believes he is the best player, and he'll try to prove it every single time out there, which I absolutely love. Um, have we heard it? Have you heard anything about Baldwin, where he's going, where he's leaning? Because I was told by someone that they're hearing he's going to go to UWM, which, I mean, you understand because his father, but it would be unheard of for someone like that to go to a school like that. But wondering if you've heard anything.
I think it's very real that Milwaukee gets him. I don't think it's just talk. We've seen it before. There was a guy by the name of Ray McCallum, whose dad was the coach at Detroit, I believe, and he was a McDonald's All-American. He went and followed his dad. If you haven't heard of him, obviously it didn't go that well because I haven't heard of him since he went there. So I don't know if that has any impact on them, but I think Patrick's a different level of player than Ray McCallum was. But I do think it's very real that he goes to Milwaukee. I do think what he's got away right now is whether or not his dad's going to be there. I think that's the concern is, do I want to commit or even sign? And, my dad takes a different job and then I'm SOL. So I could see kind of a waiting game there. If it's not Milwaukee, I would assume it's Duke.
Yeah, that
I
would be
think
my
those
guess
two are
too.
in the best spot. This hasn't come from Patrick or anybody close to him. So, keep that in mind. But this is just talk around, people I know and, what they say. But I do think the Milwaukee thing is very real. And I wouldn't be surprised if, they get a package deal with him and Ben now. Those two are very close and now is a top priority for the Panthers too.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope that Patrick wouldn't commit to Milwaukee if his dad's going to be leaving. Obviously,
Yeah.
his dad was obviously let him know that something else is in the pipeline. But I just,
Well, you never
yeah,
know what could happen. I mean, they got a whole season to play.
yeah, true.
Signs. You never know what could happen. I think that's the concern.
Yeah,
Were to do that.
sure. Okay. Um, anything else here lately in the last week or so about offers or interest? I have one for you if you want to just put it in your little bank. You have a kid. It's 2021 kid. He's a Kimberly kid. You have him ranked 106, I think, right now. Jackson Dudek.
Okay.
I was told today that Drake is interested. Not Drake the rapper from Toronto, but Drake the school. Is interested in Jackson Dudek. Likes his game. So
Okay.
just to let
Well,
you know, you can put it in your little list.
and I got him way too low.
Right. Right.
If I got
Yeah.
him almost.
So yeah, that came from a reliable source, someone I trust who told me that. So that actually talked to someone from Drake. So, although I will say this, Drake has not directly contacted the Dudex, but it just was a one-off conversation that they're interested in him. So I just thought I would let you know.
All right.
Other than that, I don't have a whole lot. I don't have much. We went through the rankings. What do we got? Is AU season basically done now? And any more tournaments coming? Is it done?
Uh,
Center court got anything?
I think so. I think NY2LA has some
Well,
next
they
week, if I'm
canceled
not
this last.
mistaken.
They were supposed to play this weekend. They canceled it. They didn't have enough
Oh,
interest
did they?
apparently.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's
I
what I was
thought they
told.
had something in. I thought they had something in Indiana.
Oh well, I
I
guess that's
know
maybe. I'm thinking more around
Baylor.
here, but
I know Baylor Youth is running something. Um, not. I think it's Hammond, Indiana, which is right on the border
okay,
with Illinois. I think they're running some too. I don't know if any Wisconsin teams are going,
okay. And
but
then what? I know you've got a couple things that you want to probably pub. I know you do on Twitter, and I'm giving you the time to do it now. That are coming up in October here and up in Appleton.
yeah. So we got the Prep Hoops Top 250 Showcase is coming to Appleton this year. I'm trying to think.
Well, let me stop you there. So Champion Center shut down their tournaments. Are you? I'm assuming expecting that mask stuff's going to be lifted for them at least for the.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to do with the organization or the logistics, but yeah, I know. I mean, the mask mandate ends end of September,
Oh, that's right.
so
Yeah, yeah. Well, who knows
I would
what?
assume if nothing happens,
Yeah,
yeah. Otherwise, we can move it. I guess. I don't know. I know we had it in Verona last year, but that's Dane County, so that wouldn't happen if there's a mask mandate. But
right.
as far as I know, it's supposed to end at the end of September.
Yep,
So
that's right. Totally forgot about
yeah,
that.
it's a good. We had a couple guys walk out with scholarship offers last year. Grant Aspman, Carson Smith's going to Northern Michigan. I think there were a couple others that earned some after the event. But we had a pretty loaded event last year. A lot of the big chunk of the top 50, and a lot of guys I had never heard of came and played well. It was a good chance to get their name ranked. And I'm assuming we'll have college coaches there. Again, I'm not in charge of the organization, but when we run these, that's what we run them for, is get the
Right.
D2 and D3 coaches in there so they can see you guys live. And I'm sure they'll be itching to get in the gym since they've been kind of shut out from a lot of events, at least in Wisconsin. But if not, it is streamed on Baller TV again. So it's usually a high level day for, not only guys, in the top 25 to kind of compete against each other, but like I said, I had a lot of names that, I never heard of, came out and played really well. And some guys that I have in the top 50 in the 2021 class right now that kind of put themselves on the map, certainly earned some new college interest. And then, yeah, for the first year ever, also at Appleton, we're running a fall league in October. It'll run 4 weekends on Friday nights. Haven't seen who's registered for that one yet, but I guess a lot of Fox Valley guys would be interested. Certainly not a far drive for people to come up from the Milwaukee area or North Shore area too if they want to play. But it's open to anybody across the state. But yeah, it should be I would guess pretty loaded fall league as well with a lot of ranked guys, and again another opportunity for people that we don't know about to emerge. We'll see what my schedule is, being that it's Friday night in the middle of football season, but um,
No
I
football.
should probably what.
There's really no football, is there?
Yeah, there's just some people are starting in September. A lot of
That's
people
I
are.
can't. How many? But there's not a lot of teams that are still playing football. I know everything up here got switched to spring.
I think well down here I think it's different.
Yeah. Okay.
I think at least Milwaukee. I know a lot of schools are going in September now.
That fall league. So I read a little bit about it. So it said that there's AAU coaches that are coaching the teams and high school coaches. So do you like anticipate high school coaches or high school teams actually just putting their whole team in there and just having their team running it?
I would assume we're not doing it that way. I mean, again, I haven't talked to anybody about the organization of it.
Okay.
I'm not going to be hands-on in terms of how it's going to run, but I would guess we just break up into random teams. I don't think it's anything like, uh, don't quote me on it, but I
Because
would guess.
you can ask to play with teammates and stuff like that. It says on there.
Oh, okay, yeah. Then I would guess it's just going to be unless you request to play with so and so, or we're breaking it up. I mean, at least
I would make sense. I would that would be
that's
the
the way I
best
would
way.
imagine. I don't think
Yeah,
we're inserting like high school teams and
that's what you. Yeah, you
and
wouldn't. I
that.
mean,
I think
you
we're
just
just
wonder.
breaking it up. But again, don't quote me on that.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure if you had much more insight. Okay. So, anyways, both those things you can find. You have, I believe, you tweeted both those out to register for. You can find on the prephoops.com. I'm assuming too, as far as top 250 Expo, and then the fall exclusive league, both in October. Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So go to Evan's Twitter page. Those are. I'm assuming you'll tweet them out again this week, probably, but you can scroll through and find it. That's all I have for. I was actually going to ask you this. Do you like the NBA or no at all or no?
I like
Are
the
you
playoffs.
okay? So are you watching the NBA now since it's back in?
A little. I don't know. It's hard to get into it. I don't know if it's just the no fans thing or just because they took so much time off and now here we are again. And I don't know. I watch a little bit, but yeah, I'm not really a casual or more of a casual NBA fan, not necessarily a hardcore. Um, I'm only going to watch my team, which in this case is the Lakers.
Ooh.
Well, only I'm a LeBron guy, so wherever he goes, I go. But my team is the Timberwolves, and they're never good. So I don't really watch much NBA. Just when LeBron gets in the playoffs, I like to follow him.
Are you a LeBron over Jordan guy? We're not going to open that entire
Yeah,
can tonight, but I just am
yes,
curious.
yes, but I don't.
I am too. I am
I'm
too. Just
not.
to be, I
I'm
am
not
too. So
like. I'm not gonna shove it down any. I think it depends on what you value. I've always believed that. Like, if you like Jordan, it's because you value the ability. I think at the end of the day, what's most important in the game? Winning and the ability to put the ball in the hole. Now, nobody did that better than Michael Jordan. Like, if you need a buck, I don't care if you're the biggest LeBron fan in the world. If you need one basket, that's the guy you pick. And so, from that perspective, obviously, having 6 titles, I don't necessarily care for the 6 for 6, 3 for 6 debate because it's stupid because you ignore all the years he didn't make it to the finals. Like,
right,
should LeBron have not dragged those sorry Cavs teams there
right. Yep.
and bettered his record? But I think the other way to look at it is all the things you can do as a basketball player at an elite level. And we've never seen anything like LeBron in terms of a guy. I mean, he's in year 17 and he just decided he wanted to be the best point guard in the league all of a sudden, and then
Yep.
league lead in assists. He's A+ facilitator, A+ scorer, A+ rebounder. Not nearly the same defender he was, but he can still guard all 5 positions. We've never seen a guy who can play all 5 and defend all 5. So in terms of everything he can do, I think it's hard to argue he's not the best basketball player. So I don't have a problem saying, Michael Jordan's the greatest player and LeBron's the most valuable. And you also have to take into value is look at how he elevates his teams. I mean, Jordan didn't win anything until Pippen and Phil Jackson arrived, and he was getting pounded in the East. You know, LeBron took Drew Gooden to a finals and knocked off a dynasty on the way in the Pistons. So, and when LeBron leaves teams, they tank. They go from first to worst. And when Michael Jordan left the Bulls, they won 2 less games, and I think we're 1 game away from making it back to the finals, if I'm not mistaken. That year he left, with all those guys still in their prime. So I think that says something too. But yeah, I'm not a hardcore jam it down your throat. LeBron's better.
Well,
I think he's
I
the
think you
best
just did.
basketball player.
I think you just lost a
But
lot of listeners off of
yeah,
that take.
well,
But
I have
appreciate
spent a
it.
lot of time. I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. But
Well,
that's
that's
my. I
good.
think it again. I think it boils down to what you value.
Yeah, I think it was very well put. I appreciate it greatly because I'm a LeBron over Jordan guy too. So all the people that I debate and argue with are going to listen to this and and bitch and moan about it. So I appreciate it. So okay, well, do you have anything else? Otherwise, we're good here.
No, I'm good.
We'll talk we'll end the recording here. We'll talk after a little bit, but all right. Well, thanks for coming on. If you wanted to, open invite always to come on the pod. You want to make this a regular thing? We got a 2023 list coming up that we can also talk about it as well, since it is in the opening kind of stages of it. So obviously, you said you're extending a little bit for as far as how many players, but again, you got an open forum here to talk about it. So thanks again for coming on, everyone. This has been Over and Back, brought to you by The Unintentional.